I'm your host, Krisna Omejica Escobar. I'm a holistic practitioner, self-love guru, and artivist. This podcast is a really juicy space that has been brewing for some time. A place where we can talk about all things related to love, but specifically our self-love. And how do we do that? Through our imagination and creativity. So, welcome to Loving Me Creatively. Every episode, we're going to have 3 segments where we're going to be exploring our reflections and we're going to have some contemplations for you. I'm going to do a segment on creativity, and it'll be like a story time hour where we get to dive into some creative, juicy stories, all connected with loving me creatively. And then our final segment will be meant to support our transformation and growth. And I'm calling it the Rebirth segment, where we're going to talk about all things related to the rebirth and death process and what that looks like in our overall growth and how that ties into how we creatively love ourselves. So I am so happy to welcome you to this podcast because it is a space that has been really brewing in the back of my mind for some time, because I come to this particular work. I do this work with a lot of my clients, looking at what areas within ourselves can be transformed, and then walking us through the process of self-reflection and self-realization. And that process is quite unique because, we all have our unique personalities. We all have our unique social experiences prior to and after. And we all have our different gifts that we come to the table. So why self-love? People ask me that a lot, like why self-love and what exactly is self-love wellness? Well, let's break that down. Why self-love? Well, self-love is part of what I am most passionate about in giving of myself as seva, as service to the larger collective. I am an educator and psychologist by trade. So I went the academic route of wanting to be in spaces, educational spaces, where people can really be supported and where I can exude my gifts, because I learned quite quickly, working with very young children to start, then working my way up to high schoolers and then later college students, that being in the place of facilitator and mentor felt very fulfilling for me. But then I really started thinking about, we're trying to learn all these academic topics and fill our brain and our mind, and that's what we're so used to. We're so focused on that in the past, in the way that we've really looked at human development and focusing so much on the brain. And the brain, studying the brain has really provided us so much information. And so I wrap around neuroscience research throughout my work, because it does allow us to understand that holistically we are one package. Everything flows in unison. And now, in really focusing on the body, mind, soul complex, that we actually are a full being through all of those layers, is what really brings me to this place, because I had to go through my own healing journey. And my own healing journey happened concurrently while I was pursuing higher graduate degrees. And as I went through my journey of self-healing and experienced domestic violence and had to really explore with more kindness the sexual abuse and like so many, the ACEs actually really provided information for us as a collective that 1 in 4 people have experienced an adverse traumatic experience in their life. If you're not familiar with the ACEs study and you are interested in learning more about trauma-informed practices, or just what is trauma And perhaps in covering your own story, I would definitely encourage you to take a peek at the ACEs study. And because my journey is very interesting, I engaged in trauma-informed practices for some time as well. And so it has really taught the collective that trauma really is a collective experience. And so if we look at it from a larger perspective in terms of energy, the karmic wave, the momentum of energy from generations who've experienced the colonial reality has been passed down through our DNA. And in order for us to heal is to really come to terms with the reality of the delusions that we've been given, that we've experienced, that has been fed to us, what we've been consuming unconsciously and consciously, and allow us to forge through with a new set of eyes. And so my self-healing process allowed me to do this. And as I did so, I began to realize, wow, focusing in on the self-love, on the compassion, on the divine feminine elements that live within all beings, all humans, allows for immense healing. And so that's what's happening right now. The new earth is beginning to really show and pave the way for the divine feminine aspects of energy to be placed in the forefront, because it has been suppressed for so long. And the suppression has actually caused a very toxic reality that has poured into our brains and has become a narrative that lives within each of us. And I'm an American, so I'm talking from an American perspective, but I've also traveled the globe. And the one thing that I can see, and that teachings will allow us to understand, specifically spiritual teachings, that when we understand that we are a human, that we are a being having a human experience, that we are a human being, but the being is the first component before the human experience, that we are infinite, that we are energy, began to really hone in on what is the purest nature of that energy, and that is love. And so self-love is a radical act in the colonial reality. And we are moving out of that. The new Earth Gateway came online full force on the 22nd of April, which is happened to be a new moon and happened to be Earth Day. The synchronicities of these things cannot be made up. And this new Earth Gateway is a wonderfully intensive energy. I say wonderfully because it might not feel wonderful, but it is wonderful in the sense of what it is offering us. And so a lot of us are going through some dense energies right now. I know that my shadow selves have been coming out. The traumas that I have thought that were long gone are coming up, and core themes are coming up for me to address. And I need to pay attention to these energies because they are messages and they are propelling agents. They are foundations for me to move forward. So if I am purging something, how am I moving in? And that's our first segment for this episode. Our contemplation as we move into the crescent moon stage, as we move from the new moon, from the dark stages of the moon, the dark aspects of our karma that are coming up for us. Our contemplation is, what do we want to replace with what we are purging out? If we are recognizing that this is not serving us, these are aspects of our experience intergenerationally and within this life that we can recall, what are the things that we desire to replace it with? Because when we remove something, it's important to replace something, but something that is filled from a place of love is going to be more aligning with our higher self and our soul urge. And so I sat in this contemplation. What is it that I want to replace. And again, on the self-love wave. And for me, this contemplation is a continual practice. And this is part of living a conscious lifestyle, that we have a daily practice where we really get in tune with the aspects of our soul urge that are most important. And that takes intentional planning. That while it's important for us to be in the flow, to move like water and air, and be able to be formless and to not attach to any expectation of an outcome, to be able to move with what the energy of the universe and our reality around us is providing us. And if we stay in the tune or the frequency of the love, we're able to be open for the opportunities that align with that frequency. So as we contemplate on that frequency of love and what we want to bring in, I want to encourage you to also contemplate and really begin to think about how has those experiences of my past, the shadows that are coming up, what are those things teaching me about aspects that put me in a low vibration, that make me feel grief, sadness, anger, shame, doubt, any of those energy centers, any of those energies, the waves of energy that make me feel motionless, that don't make me feel like I want or have a purpose, something to give me energy, motivation, like the beautiful fire energy. And so contemplation offers us a point from which to move. And so when we use the motivation of the fire energy and the fluidity of the air and the water, we're able to reflect from a place of being open for changes, because right now there is an uncertainty. There is an uncertainty for all of us across the globe. And I am in my contemplation honing in on creating a new timeline, a new reality, something that we've never experienced before. And being in that space of contemplation of a reality we've never experienced before can stir up a lot of emotions. So sitting in the emotions is important. For me, it gets me excited. I'm ascending fire. Leo, ascending Leo. And that fire energy gets me excited. I'm excited. A Scorpio moon, that what is unseen, what is in the shadow, that gets me excited. And I recognize that for some, that is very, very, very uncomfortable, to the point of fear, debilitating even. And so I share the message of doing it with love, your contemplation with love, because the uncertainty could bring the contemplation, it could spiral you into some anxiety. And again, allow yourself to feel what it needs to, with the flow, with the love, but come back to the center of the love, because the love, honing in on the self-love, is super important. And if you're interested in exploring this practice further, creative self-reflection is what I call it, and going deep, diving deep, and doing so not necessarily to bring up all of our shadows, but to dive deep into what we desire, and allowing us to practice through creative reflection, to practice self-love, because it includes a lot of different things. If you're interested in learning more about it, I have some really cool infographics on my website, selflovecreatives.com, to be able to look to see, what is New Earth love? And self-love is one of those components. I'm planning to do a workshop this Saturday on specifically exploring self-love. So if you're interested, please join me this Saturday. You can find out more information on my Instagram at selflovecreatives, as well as the website. Ticket link in the bio. very affordable, $11 self-investment. So you'll get a chance to dive into that. But contemplation is so important. So I leave us on this note, on this segment of loving me creatively. Contemplate with love and stay in the space of water. Move like water. Be formless as you allow yourself to reflect. Let's dive into segment 2, creativity, story hour. Yes, I am a storyteller, let me tell you. And I am super excited to share a little vibe with all of you, explore some wordplay some weeks, do some stories other times, and the goal is to activate our imagination. So, when I think about imagination and I think about creativity, it's hard for me not to think about the very first moment that I was truly inspired and really began to feel what it's like to imagine something so beyond my current experience was having my son. And I was a teen mom. I had my son at age 15. And, just the idea of creating a life and having a life come from life is just mind-blowing in and of itself. But the definition of love, just without any boundaries, came from being a mom. And motherhood really allowed me to move into spaces of being super creative and having imagination that was way outside myself, because it was beginning to have visions and future aspirations for something that was not just about me. It was about my son, and it was about creating something for him, a foundation. And having my own childhood experiences being kind of a jumping off point, all of the great aspects of my childhood and all the things that weren't so great, the traumas that I experienced. And so being a mom was so amazing because it was amazing and challenging, because in the place of still being a teen and, experiencing social stigmas from being a teen and being a mom, to just like everybody's ideas about what age is and experiencing ageism and really what that feels like. And as a female, I learned a lot about how you can creatively maladapt. Now, this concept of creative maladaptation is not something that I can take credit for. Let's see if I can look it up really quick. Creative maladaptation was introduced to me in my graduate studies, to adapt to a situation creatively. And so while it might seem that it is maladaptation, it's actually adaptation in a creative way. And so I love the idea of creative maladaptation, because in order to move from my experiences through stigma and all that I just shared, was for me to creatively maladapt and begin to see how my place in the world wasn't going to fit the mold. Creative maladaptation meant that I was able to adapt creatively to my environment and my surroundings. And so I think about my very earliest ways in which I creatively maladapted and the way that I adapted, and I used my creativity as a sparking point to be able to fuel my sense of self-purpose and self-worth living amongst a reality of oppression. And that's really what I had only realized that reality for so long, but still was able to adapt, and so I was resilient. And in this capacity to creatively maladapt, I found my creativity in creating amazing foods, in making never the same recipe twice, in being able to feel how love can be placed in food and then shared with others. And so my storytime hour creative story is just the running joke that there was always a running joke in my home that, hey, can you make that again? Because everyone knew I didn't measure, I didn't write down recipes, and no, you're not going to ever get the same meal twice. So you have to really be comfortable with that. You gotta know, if you come to my dinner party, you gotta savor that meal, because you might never taste those same flavor profiles again. But playing with foods and flavors and being creative in that combination actually prepared me to be creative as I move forward in my life. When resources were low, and you got to really think about creating something yummy with that meal and the resources you have, to, thinking about sharing food with others and baking and loving that. So my loving me creatively inspiration or lesson from the story is how invaluable it is to use one's imagination and create something that's never been created before, and do it in a way that comes from a place of love. And my cooking is always, for me, it makes me so happy to cook because I love food. I'm a foodie. I love to eat, and sharing food with others brings me so much joy. And so loving me creatively is always about creating delicious foods for others to taste. I would love to hear how you lovingly create. Drop me a comment or follow me on Insta. Tag me on your post. I would love to reshare your story. Let's inspire each other. So this is our final segment where we talk all about transformation and rebirth. And not just talk, but feel our transformation and rebirth process. And we do it from a very tuned in place. So I want to encourage you to tap into this energy right now by just kind of relaxing your body. I would encourage you to close your eyes, but if you don't feel comfortable with that, find a fixed place where your eyes are relaxed in its fixed position, and just kind of settle in. Notice your shoulders, relax them. Notice your bottom, where you're sitting, where you're laying. Just notice your body. As you feel your body relaxing from your toes, energy moves up through your body to your fingertips and the top of your head. Now start focusing on your breath. Feel it breathe in naturally and exhale naturally, no effort. I'd like you to take a collective breath with me. And on 3, we're going to empty our bellies, tucking it in at our belly button. 1, 2, 3, tuck. And now you're going to breathe in deeply. Hold for a moment. Let go. Let's do that again. Tuck in your belly. Breathe in 4 count. Hold. And breathe out your mouth. Do that one on your own. And settle into your seat a little deeper. And today I'm going to be using aquamarine as our charging agent. And so just envision this aquamarine color in your mind. As you breathe in naturally, feel this beautiful color swirl around your body, holding it for a moment as you exhale gently, slowly, allowing this energy to surge through your body, washing over you as you exhale, so that you are breathing in and then breathing out. And we tap into the energy of the aquamarine for its beautiful healing benefits. And as we breathe in this beautiful aquamarine energy, we can begin to feel its calming effects. Its shoulders are more relaxed and our stresses are floating away. And we feel our throat activated, our truths are being activated. And our truths are coming from a place of our own mastery. What are our own gifts? How have we transformed so far? Allow this energy to be felt in the heart space. Feel this energy swirl your heart as you breathe in. This energy melds with your heart, bright light. As you breathe out, breathing out any narratives, fears, doubts, toxic narratives, lack of worthiness. Filling it up with positive words reminding us of our gifts, pushing us in the direction of our transformation with courage. And with gratitude, we give the aquamarine energy our love and gratitude for these energies. As we settle into this peaceful state, we feel the aquamarine energy of its blue, greenish hues fill us up and boost our immune system, activating our DNA and promoting our self-healing, subsiding any allergies to toxins in our environment, allowing us to access the most freshest air per breath. And as we tap into this courageous energy, we ask for its guidance in our transformations. Breathe in deeply a few times in this energy, allowing it to rebirth you, purging out toxic narratives and posing to you a question. How do I show up each day, acknowledging and making use of my natural gifts? What must I purge? What has been purged that allows me to access my rebirth? What transformations would I like to see of myself next week, next month, and in 1 year from now? Take a deep breath of this beautiful, courageous energy, holding it for as long as is comfortable. Breathing out any final toxic narratives, fears, or doubts, allowing you to feel stress-free in this rebirth process. Place your hands in front of your heart, bowing your head, showing gratitude and reverence for the beautiful energies of aquamarine, allowing your higher self to tap into this energy frequency, this message that you've now put out. Remain in this peaceful place as you move your fingers and wiggle your toes. And that comes to an end of our very first episode of Loving Me Creatively. I'm your host, Krisna, and I thank you so much for joining me. Join me every Thursday for your transformation. Every Thursday transformations, as you lovingly, creatively create your new reality as we move into this wonderful new earth. Namaste to you all. Blessings. Don't forget to follow me, and you can check out all of my one-on-one support at selflovecreatives.com. See you next week. Much love.